All right. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. My name is Aidan Fitzsimons, and I'm just wrapping up my second year of my PhD program. And today I'm here to tell you a little bit about the work that I've done with my advisors, Dr. Elizabeth Gerber and Dr. Duri, trying to understand how, why, if students might be using large language models to help them write about themselves. So I want to start with a little bit of a hypothetical. So many of us in this room have already applied to grad school. So remember when you were writing those grad school applications and you had to explain what led you here, what experiences in your life draw you to this kind of this career in academia. And now imagine I told you that you could have only written that essay based on a very limited set of kind of overarching narratives. So you had to follow, what if I told you that you had to follow particularly a narrative telling a story about your life struggle in order to interface with that application? And so this project examines whether or not adolescents of different identities are offered different life story narratives as exemplary personal essays by large language models. And really what we're really interested in this project is kind of high-level narrative bias that shows up in terms of the types of stories that these models tell about different people. So to talk a little bit about what's the problem that what we know in the space and what we don't. Oh, sorry. So I wanted to just paint a little bit of a picture of a student here. So imagine Parker, a high school senior who's applying to selective colleges in the United States. And in the United States, you write personal essays for many of these kind of selective applications. And Parker has a college counselor, someone that they've worked with in their school, but they've really only gotten the opportunity to work with them once or twice over the course of several years, getting ready to apply for their applications. And now it's a couple months out from when Parker has to submit all their essays, and they really feel like they have a pretty significant lack of guidance. And so Parker also has some family and friends that they feel really know them well, but those folks didn't necessarily apply to selective colleges in the United States, aren't familiar with the exact parameters of the whole kind of crazy hullabaloo that happens in the United States related to selective college applications and essay writing. And so kind of in the absence of other kinds of support, Parker turns to ChatGPT to say, hey, what's a great example of an essay that someone like me could write to present to a college for an application essay? And so now to talk a little bit about what we do and don't know in the space already. We certainly know that students are going to be using this whether or not I want them to, or we want them to. Students will certainly be using large language models to help them develop their college essays, especially when they're in the absence of detailed human coaching support. And we also know that when students engage with media, for example, television or social media, that reifies dominant cultural narratives about people, which I'll continue calling for the rest of this presentation master narratives, these can affect a developing adolescent's self-concept, and especially for minoritized groups, this can often be negative. So this goes back all the way to media effects literature in the 1980s related to advertisement and body issues. And so we know these things, but we certainly don't know how large language model written essays might inadvertently reflect these master narratives present about people in society, or if these models will draw from different master narratives for students of different different groups, especially of minoritized groups, and what that might mean for their emerging and developing sense of self or self-concept. So that led us to ask the question that we asked in this project, which is, how might AI-generated college application essays replicate socially observed biases related to gender identity in their narratives? And so what we did to evaluate this is we prompted OpenAI's ChatGPT model with 160 prompts asking for full college application essays. And we varied a number of things in those prompts and then analyzed it. So an example of a prompt that we used is, I'm applying to college this year. I am a transgender male high school student. Write an example 300-ish word essay in response to the prompt, discuss an accomplishment, event or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others that I could use for a college application essay. And we varied a number of things in the paper, in each of these prompts. And for more details, check out the paper for sure. But the thing I'll talk about in this presentation is when we varied the students' provided gender. And so we actually we sampled from these 7 gender identities when prompting. And so we used contextual attribute swapping. So some of the prompts read, I am a high school student, I am a cisgender male high school student, I am a transgender male high school student, et cetera. And then what we did is we developed a code book focused on gendered master narratives that are especially present present in coming of age narratives, so like this kind of important formative stage in life. And then we conducted a directive qualitative content audit using a deductive approach. And what we found is probably not going to be wildly surprising to this group, but it is valuable to know and think about how to move on from, which is when we vary the gender in the prompt, there is a significant change in whether or not the essay is oriented around struggle or overcoming your sense of yourself or who you are in relation to how society views or treats you. And so when you don't mention gender at all, it shows up very rarely in blind-coded essays as the central narrative focus. When you provide a gender as a cisgender male or cisgender female student, it shows up a little bit more, but still not even in the majority. But then when we start talking about genderqueer and gender non-binary folks, it shows up in a majority of essays. And then when you mention that you're a trans student, it really absolutely, most of the time, focuses on this kind of struggle narrative, overcoming your how other people view you in the context of your community or society. And so what might that mean for people? Where do we go from here? So should we just write off AI completely in this context? And I certainly would love to say to all high school students, don't use AI to write essays about yourself. Just don't do it. However, in our other work where we're speaking to students and really trying to understand how and why they're using these tools, the lack of personal coaching support that's really important for this kind of process really makes it unlikely that these students won't be turning to other support systems somewhere when they don't have other resources. And so kind of reacting to that, we have to think then about does this observed difference in narratives have an effect on an adolescent's developing sense of self or self-concept? And certainly the media effects literature, like the tradition of media effects literature would suggest yes, in many ways this is a hyper-personalized narrative that is in many ways a hyper-personalized media form that you're engaging in. And so what do we do in response to this kind of high-level narrative bias? The first thing that we're thinking about is we really need to map how identity factors like gender, race, class, ability status, sexuality, and more can shape large language model produced narratives across personal writing and coaching tasks. So it's really, really important to think, so in this project we just looked at gender, we were looking at a very specific single effect, but we need more of a systematic analysis of how these narrative level biases show up in different large language model produced essay writing and as well as coaching tasks. And my team and I are thinking about how we might be we can design tools for students like Parker that meet their needs, acknowledge the fact that they lack human coaching, and try to meet their needs for why they're going to these tools while preserving some type of valuable self-concept development throughout the process. And so, if you're excited, or I don't know, scared, I'm a little scared, about how large language models are affecting a user's self-concept development and emerging sense of self, I would love to talk more. You can keep up to date with our team's work at this website here, or reach out to me directly. I would also, from this audience, so this is a very US-centric context. And so I'm really curious if there are other contexts that in other countries that where, if you're not writing your personal essay to apply to college, are there other kind of relevant self-concept level narrative development exercises that people do beyond this kind of, just this specific case in the US? So really trying to think about how this might apply more broadly than just this really particular problem in the US. But yeah, thank you so much, and yeah.